Welcome. I am Tony Taylor and I am the connector. Today you are in for a treat. I had the pleasure of meeting this lovely woman about a year ago already, um, trying to fulfill a need. And like all of a sudden she just popped up and I just ran with it. Her name is Lisa A. Smith. And I met her in her group with the Farm to Table group. She has other businesses, and we'll expand on that later. But welcome, Lisa. How are you?
Hi, Anthony. I'm well. Thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm doing great. Like, I'm blessed, right? Remember in the group, I was like, you know what? You and I are going to work together later. And I manifested it.
Yes, you absolutely sure did. You said that from day one.
Exactly. It's all about them good old plant based downloads we've been getting.
I love me a good divine download. Amen.
Exactly. And we'll talk about that too. But so, for those who don't know you, tell everyone who you are and how you got to this point of like running successful businesses and our let's go all the way back to the beginning if you don't
Mhm.
mind.
Yeah, Anthony. So, again, thank you so much for having me. I'm a plant-based health and business coach. I'm founder of a coaching company called The Plant Protocol, and we've been in business 10 years. And we specialize first and foremost in optimizing people's health using a whole food plant-based diet. But it started with my own health journey, right? So back in 2012, I was overweight and I was working as a social worker for the state of Michigan.
Wow.
I wanted to figure out how to lose weight and have more body confidence. And so I ended up becoming a client of one of my coworkers. She was a personal trainer. So she was a social worker in child welfare too, but she was
Okay.
also a personal trainer. And she invited me to the gym that she works at. And I became her first client, one of her first clients, and she helped me lose my first 30 pounds. And that just sparked something totally different in me. And I don't think it's a coincidence that the fall of that year, I was putting in my resignation at my 9 to 5 and moving abroad and taking a chance on myself. And so as I began to try and figure out what I wanted to do outside of social work, I was continuing to lose weight. I lost another 35 pounds for a
That's
total of over 60 pounds.
incredible.
Yes. And then I was like, okay, I want to go into health and wellness. And so I eventually started my first company in 2015. And we've been going ever since. We started as an online personal training company, and then we pivoted to nutrition coaching in 2021. We introduced business coaching, and we do personal development coaching. And so I own a coaching company that's all about helping people optimize their well being from the neck down and the neck up.
That's amazing. I mean, it's helped me a lot. Like I said, how I found you, uh, I kept getting these messages from a higher source said like I needed to change my diet. I'm very into metaphysics and spirituality, and I had a past life regression. I had actually six of them. And you know how sometimes you searching for something, but you don't want to listen, and they keep
Yeah.
telling you the same damn thing.
Yeah.
And it all said, it's your diet. You need to change your diet. And then, so I was up late one night and I went onto YouTube and I was watching this podcast, but it was a woman, but you ended up being the guest on
Mhm.
the show. And then I was immediately drawn to you. And so I went behind the scenes, did my little research, and then sent you an email. And you were just about to start a new group with Farm to Table. And I started the Farm to Table group. And I'm so grateful and thankful that I did. And it's just been a great journey so far. You know, I backslide. I need, we'll talk about that too, because whenever I see you speak or in our group, you would always talk about radical obedience. So tell everyone about radical obedience.
Yes. Radical obedience is a term that I use to define doing what God is calling you to do despite the presence of fear and uncertainty. And
Yes.
so, for a lot of us, we're not completely disobedient, but we're not radically obedient. A lot of us, we're somewhere in the middle. We're doing most of it, or we're doing what makes us feel comfortable, or we're doing what doesn't. cause us to face our insecurities, right?
Hmm.
But radical obedience is all about, okay, I've been getting these divine downloads, I've been getting these signs and these signals that it is really time to change my diet, or it's really time to change careers, or it's really time to pivot in my relationships. And sometimes we delay that obedience out of
I
fear,
know
out
that's
of
right.
unfamiliarity, we all have a variety of reasons why we're not moving quickly on what God is telling us to do. And so radical obedience is really all about showing up on assignment and making it non-negotiable.
Yes, which is great because, like, with any other thing in life, like if you're obedient, you can like thrive. If you're like delving in it, dipping in it, you can't. You won't ever succeed. So I love that term, radical obedience. So tell people about your farm to table group, the one that
Mhm.
I joined.
Yeah. So Farm to Table is our plant-based coaching program. We created it in 2016. And since then, we've been facilitating cohorts of Farm to Table where individuals learn how to use a plant-based diet, medicine, how to get over food addictions, how to unearth limiting beliefs that have been keeping them stuck in their health, in their relationships, and their career, right? A lot of stuff comes up during Farm to Table because when you clear out the system and clear out the body with
Yes.
all of that processed food, all of that refined sugar, all of that saturated fat and cholesterol, your mind gets clearer. And so a lot of magic happens in Farm to Table as we are changing the diet, helping people understand what it means to use food to prevent disease instead of promoting disease. So there's a lot of learning, there's a lot of education around nutrition and lifestyle. But then there's also a lot of becoming. And that's where we really get to the bottom of limiting beliefs. What stories are you telling yourself that's keeping you stuck? That's when we really put people on track to radical obedience.
Yeah, so when I was in your group, I had a little minor setback. I was riding my bike, crashed my bike, broke my arm, and I just remember all my family and some of my friends were like, "You're gonna have to go back to a regular diet. Your body's not gonna be able to heal if you don't have milk and dairy and beef." And I was like, "No, I'm not doing it. I'm not." And I kid you not, Lisa, like my wife's a nurse, and she was like, and I heal relatively fast anyway, but this time, oh my God, I literally healed so fast. Even when I went back, the doctors were like, wow, you heal really fast. And I was like, oh, I'm plant based. And one of them looked at me kind of like, yeah, whatever. But for me, I knew that it was the right decision by having switched to a plant based diet. Can you expound on that, or what would you say if somebody said, "Oh, your body heals faster"?
Yeah. Oh, no, it definitely does. So when we are putting anti-inflammatory things into our body as opposed to inflammatory foods, right? So when animal products have growth hormones, they have a compound called heterocyclic amines, which increases our chances for cancer. So these carcinogenic components, but then you have all of the saturated fat, the trans fat, the cholesterol, the growth hormones that are inflammatory to the body. So when we remove those things from the body, that's when we give our bodies the opportunity to operate at its best. Blood flows like it's supposed to,
Yes.
immune system operates like it's supposed to. And to your point, Anthony, if we get injured, whether it's falling off a bike and breaking our arm, or if we cut ourselves while we're just chopping up vegetables, right? That blood can clot in that area better, like because the blood flow is not like sludge, but it's
Oh yeah.
flowing. The viscosity is low, right? So when if you have surgeries coming up, if you have to recover from a surgery, it is 10 times better when you go in already healthy with low to no inflammation in your body, with healthy eating habits. You're not dehydrated, you don't have neuropathy from all of the sugar. Like it is a game changer. Like I don't even catch colds, but maybe once every 2 years.
Yeah.
Like everything is stronger. Your
Yes.
body operates better when you are not putting a bunch of inflammatory foods into your body, and meat and dairy can be extremely inflammatory.
Yeah. I had another setback after that. I don't know if you know. Yeah, because our group had ended then.
Mhm.
But last year I ended up in the hospital with sepsis
Mm,
for 5 days. And then I had a PIC line for 10 days. And when I was in the hospital, my wife is a nurse and she said to the doctor, Tony's whole food plant based. And he kind of looked at her like, okay. And then she was like, no, he needs a different diet. He can't have what you guys serve. So he was like, okay. Well, then the head nurse came down and she spoke to my wife and she said, oh, let me call dietary. And I was shocked because we, in our group, we talk about inclusion. And when you go out to restaurants and everything, make sure that you state your piece. And you just have to tell them you don't want the oil, you don't want the salt. And so this lovely woman came in and she set out, she's like, how long are you going to be here? And I was like, hopefully I can get the hell up out of here today. She's like, that's not going to happen, Mr. Taylor. But so she set up a meal plan for me, like a great meal plan, didn't have all the sugar, didn't have, and I even told her I don't want because she was like, I can make you a stir fry. And I was like, if you do, I can't have the oil. I don't want the oil. And so she accommodated me, and I was pleasantly surprised that the hospital did. Because I've been out
mm,
to other places where they don't, like, I went out to dinner with my wife and my niece one day, and there was nothing I could eat. And they told me they had one menu, and then she came back and said, the chef said he can't make that.
mm.
So my wife and my niece were eating, and I just had some salad, a salad and something else, but I couldn't eat. But
Yeah.
it's crucial that we stand our ground and we say what we will and what we won't put in our bodies.
Absolutely, it is. And farm to table, as you alluded to, we call it demanding inclusion. Right? And
Yes.
so the your willingness and your wife's willingness to advocate for you at the hospital is demanding inclusion. What most of us do, and we go through life doing this, whether it's in our health or any area, we walk into spaces, we walk into institutions, and we just settle for whatever there is. We don't
Yes.
ask for what we need. We don't demand inclusion. We don't ask exceptions to be made, right? For a lot of us, we're willing to compromise our personal values and our personal preferences
Yep.
to go along to get along, right? But sometimes your values have to take precedence over what the status. And so
Yes.
going into a hospital where hospitals are notorious for not having healthy food, but
No.
being bold enough to say, I'm not going to eat that. And there has
Yeah.
to be an accommodation made, and it worked out in your favor.
It did. Like I remember the first night I think I had peanut butter and something. It wasn't fulfilling, but it got me through the night.
Yeah.
It was crazy. So talk to me about where you are in your journey because you've had an amazing journey. Like I said, I love your story. Um, and what other businesses do you have?
No, I only run one company. I only run one
Okay,
company. Yeah, one company, and we offer health coaching and business coaching,
so it's
career
all under that
coaching.
one umbrella.
Yeah, one company. Yep, that's it. One umbrella.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. And so for people like me that were in your group,
yeah.
that are kind of like I now have like I'll eat certain things that I probably shouldn't eat as a
Mhm.
whole food plant based. I still try to stay away from the oil and salt and sugar, but every now and then I'll do dairy and every now and then I'll do seafood. But I want my numbers to get back to where they
Mhm.
were. Can
Mhm.
you speak on it?
Okay, so what's your question? It don't sound like this is a science question. Is this more
Okay,
like a
yeah, no,
discipline,
no.
consistency? What's the
How can what we put in our bodies, what we ingest, impact our numbers? Because
yeah?
in our group, I've just even when I started with you, like my numbers dropped drastically, and my doctor was like, "Whatever you're doing, continue to do it." Because he kept trying to put me on a statin, and I was like, "I don't want a statin."
Mm-mm, mm-mm. So food is one of the most underrated tools, optimizing blood pressure, cholesterol, weight, blood sugar,
Mm.
markers of inflammation, kidney functioning. Like food has the biggest impact. And it can go in one of two directions, Anthony. It can either promote disease, fast you to medications and hospitalization,
Yeah.
or it can combat, it can prevent disease and reverse all of that. So
Yeah.
when we're eating all of this ultra processed food, when we're eating all of this fried food, when we're eating foods that are laden with oil, salt, sugar, when we're eating all of these animal products, processed meat is a carcinogenic. Like we don't understand all the lunch meat, all the sausages,
Uh,
the hot dogs, all of that stuff is a
hmm.
class one carcinogenic. It significantly increases your chances for cancer, right?
Yes.
And so when we stop eating those things, that's when the viscosity of our blood changes. So instead of our blood being super thick like honey,
Hmm.
it changes and begins to flow again, and the viscosity comes down. So now it can flow through the arteries. And when the blood properly flows through the arteries, that's when we decrease blood pressure because our
Right.
body doesn't have to use so much pressure to push the blood through our
Oh,
veins.
yeah, yeah.
When we stop eating the animal products, when we stop eating dietary cholesterol, that's when we get off the statins.
Yeah.
Like blood cholesterol goes up because we're eating cholesterol. Our body naturally makes cholesterol as it should, our liver makes it.
Yeah.
But our cholesterol rises when we then eat the animals who also make cholesterol, right?
Yeah.
So these things, they're so fixable. The weight, all of the weight that we cover in our carry in our midsection
Yep.
is that one of the biggest indicators of disease and dysfunction later in life is how much weight is in your midsection. So diet can change these things. And unfortunately, a lot of us have been taught just things like it just runs in my family and there's nothing I can do. And it's just not true.
Yeah, I love the thing you always say. It runs in your family because nobody in your family
Right.
runs.
Amen. Amen. Because nobody runs in your family. Like
But that's so true.
nobody gave you a gene for heart disease. Like nobody
No.
gave you a gene for nobody gave you a gene for this. Can somebody have a higher probability than somebody else? Can we be more predisposed? Yes. But that's not a guarantee. So yes, there
Right.
can be
Can you expound on that? Because there's a lot of misconceptions about I was born. My mom had high blood pressure. My dad, my
yeah.
grandmother. Can we talk about that? Because I think a lot of people don't realize that whatever you put in your body is gonna
Yes.
affect you.
It
And so
is.
if it's the good stuff, then it'll be a good outcome. If you're eating
Yep.
processed crap, then it's gonna be crap.
It's that simple. And while I say it's that simple, I'm not suggesting that it's easy, right? I don't want to minimize what it is to be in addiction to this stuff because addiction is engineered into food, right? It's
Yeah.
called the bliss point. So there are food scientists who are in the lab literally putting together the perfect combination of fat and sugar to make you addicted to the potato chips, to make you addicted to the cookies, to the soda, to the energy drinks.
Yep.
So I don't want to minimize anyone who might be struggling with letting this stuff go. There's addiction engineered into it, right? But it is very true that what truly runs in your family are the habits. It's the fact that we have habituated to every Thanksgiving, we gotta have
Mm-hmm.
all of the cakes, all of the desserts, all of
Yeah.
the meat. Like it's we make artery clogging food a tradition, right? We've made disease causing food, brain clogging food. We've habituated to it so much that we won't even allow ourselves to consider going without it because we just normalize it, right? And so it's not that the disease runs in your family, it's that the habits and the practices that keeps these things in rotation runs in your family. So the recipe for the mac and cheese runs in your family, the pound
Yeah.
cake runs in your family, the fact that you've been taught that no, you don't work for happiness and fulfillment, you just work to pay your bills. That belief runs in your family. So
Yeah.
we have to understand the difference between, how much control we really have versus just long-standing beliefs that we haven't had the courage to challenge.
Have you noticed a cultural or societal difference? I know in our African American community, just from slavery and everything, we were given the scraps. We had to eat what was given to us, and so I think it still is that way in certain cultures where we've always eaten this way. I'm never going to stop having the fried chicken. I'm never going to stop having the pig snout, whatever. Have
Hmm.
you noticed a difference between societies where they're less fortunate and they don't have the means to have a whole food plant based diet?
Yep. What you're referring to right now is a phenomenon called diseases of the affluent. So
Mm,
things like obesity and diabetes, these are affluent diseases, which means I can afford to eat so rich. Like I can
yeah.
afford the steak with all the
Wow.
marbling in it. So that's
Yeah. Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
marbling is the fat that clogs the arteries. Like I can afford the lobster and the shellfish that's so high in cholesterol, right? I can
Yeah.
afford the expensive cheese, which doesn't do anything but create a bunch of mucus in my body that carries disease. And so this is considered diseases of the affluent, meaning
Oh
I'm
wow.
rich enough to be sick.
Uh huh.
And so to your point, a lot of poorer communities, they tend to have to eat off the earth. They're
Yeah.
growing their own foods, or they can afford all this meat. They can't afford to be in a drive-through every day. They can afford their morning Starbucks with a pastry every day. So as
Yeah.
a result, they're eating the beans, the rice, they're eating the plants, right? They're eating the grains. And so diseases of the affluent, it means that we have advanced so much as a society with our wealth that where sugar used to be a luxury reserved for the higher echelon of society, now it's so
Hmm.
ubiquitous, right? We can all afford to eat donuts and candy and cake and soda every day. And so as a result, we have the diseases that come with it.
I never heard it spun that way. That's great. Yeah. And so,
The
what would you say to someone who wanted to get into a whole food plant based diet just because of illness or they finally a light goes off, and how can you say to start the journey?
community.
Yes.
100% community, 100% like community, and a community that's curated for that purpose. So it's not a generic community, but it's curated for the purpose of health and helping you learn what it takes to eat better. And then it's led by somebody who's done the work. There's nothing like having the support of a community, but then having the possibility model in the community leader. So one of the best things that I've done in my years as an entrepreneur, as a person who's growing in her health, her personal development, her spirituality, is I've invested to be in communities where they value what I'm trying to adopt. And
Yeah.
so it becomes a new normal because if you try and do it on your own, in your current circle, in your current friend group, in your current,
Yep.
ecosystem, because the things that you guys have been doing is just the normal, is the norm, it's going to be much harder to detach from those behaviors. But when you get into an ecosystem where the norm is to not eat sugar, where the norm is to pray and meditate every day, where the norm is to exercise, where you actually now you're the outcast if you don't versus being the outcast if you do, that changes the game.
That's a complete game changer. Complete.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So, like for people that, again, back to me, because I've kind of like integrated other things, but I know I always don't feel as well. I don't run as fast. I don't
Yep.
sleep as well. Like when I entered, like last night, yesterday, we had some friends over and I had cheese, which probably was like, no, no, no. And then I had some other, oh, I think I had some wine. And so I didn't sleep well last night
Hmm.
because I guess my body was trying to process it. And I'm not normally, I don't consume that a lot. So
Yep.
it was tough not being a, well, I know the difference now, but how is it when people, it's like, you know what, I'm gonna just treat myself this one time, or how, I'm gonna just have this time. And then before you know it, you're eating crappy again.
Hmm.
What would you say to
So
that?
Because they still have I believe I can have everything in moderation mindset. So this is a moderation
Mm,
mindset. Yeah, it's just a moderation mindset. And so there's this, it's, we have all heard a billion times, and we've probably said it a billion times, is
yes.
that, I'll do good most of the time, but I'm just gonna have a little bit of the foolishness in moderation, right? And what happens is exactly what happened for you. Like, it doesn't take weeks or months of eating that stuff to not feel good.
No.
It takes one time, and then you wake up like, I'm not well rested, I'm sluggish, and I got feel mucus from the cheese, right? Like,
Or you have
it doesn't.
dietary stomach issues,
Yeah.
bloating.
And so, yeah, so the question becomes, now I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad about their choices, but I just want to leave you with a question, which is, if you make the decision to moderate junk food that doesn't make you feel good, are you okay with making the decision to moderate disease or not feeling good? Like, if you only
Mm,
want to feel good some of the time, then only eat good some of the time. If you want to feel
yeah,
good all of the time, then eat good all of the time. It just depends on what you're willing to compromise, what you're willing to give up for
yeah,
that stuff, right? Some stuff should be a non-negotiable for some of us. Some of us can afford a little moderation, but the issue with moderation is it's not a real place. There's no such,
yeah,
like, if I ask you what moderation mean, you might say once a week. Somebody else might say once a year. Like, moderation is not even a real thing. We just throw that term out there when we want to eat something that we know doesn't make us feel good. We're not
yeah,
intentionally setting a time frame, or a cadence for how we eat that way. And so that moderation mindset, which is really just an excuse mindset,
hmm,
is what keeps us stuck. So then we have days where we don't feel our best, even though we desire to perform at our best. And it's impossible to perform at our best if we don't feel our best.
yeah. And you said something earlier about like addiction, because food can be an addiction for a
Hmm.
lot of people. And I
Hmm.
was listening to another show that you on, and you talked about being addicted to food because this guy was talking about, he drove to three different gas stations to get some Cheetos or something like that. And that's crazy to have driven, gotten in your car, spent your time and your money to drive to three different locations to get Cheetos. But I've done that before, where you just go out of your way to get something, or you make a special trip to get something. And so, can you talk about food and addiction, and like you said, with the sugar and how scientists spend millions of dollars per year for these huge businesses, Kraft
Hmm.
and all these other businesses, where they want to make the consumer addicted.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, food is totally addictive, and it is designed and engineered that way. And so it's absolutely true. Food can be a substance for us, or drugs. And for a lot of people, it is their drug. And the thing that makes food hard is that it's socially acceptable, right? So you wouldn't shoot up in the middle of a restaurant, but you sure would order two pieces of cake. And so,
That's a good
you
way of
know,
putting it.
yeah, and so that makes it almost harder because you can be addicted in, publicly, and nobody will know that you're really struggling, that this has a
Yeah,
hold on you. Nobody will know that this is your eighth time in the drive-through this week. And so, it is very, very real that you can be addicted to food, and it is engineered that way so that you will be.
yeah. And can you talk
Mhm.
about the gut health and the brain health and the connection? Because some people, a lot of scientists now believe that the microbiome and the gut health is just as important or more important than your brain health. And there's a correlation between the gut and the brain.
Yeah, well, they start off as the same cell when we're in an embryo, and then they split and become two separate organs, but they essentially continue to communicate for the remainder of our lives through the vagus nerve. The brain and the gut definitely connected, and your gut health is a huge role in your ability to thrive. Immune system is melatonin, serotonin is produced in the gut. That's where all the magic happens. And so, what we feed our gut bugs makes a difference in whether or not we thrive. because we have all these little bugs living in our gut. And so if we
Yeah.
feed them fiber, if we feed them healthy whole foods, then we'll thrive physically. But if we feed them processed takeout, fast food, junk food, packaged food that is like ultra processed, then it's going to destroy our health. So your gut is the foundation of almost everything.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like
Yeah.
with the prebiotics and probiotics, or just like fermented food. I love kimchi. I love kombucha. Like I love that stuff. And a lot of my friends are like, "How in the hell can you drink that? It's disgusting." And I was like, "No, it's great, and it's serving a purpose. It's like
Yeah.
making me healthier."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
because there's a huge misconception with uh diet. Like still in this date and time, like we still have a lot of misconceptions with food, and it's just
Yeah.
like they say, once you know better, you do better. But
Mm.
yeah, it's tough watching people just like overeat. Like when I
Mm-hmm.
go to a restaurant now, I'll ask for a to-go box. And I'll box up half of it because of the portions here in the United States are huge. And you don't
Mm-hmm.
need to eat that entire portion.
Absolutely. Yeah, we got to do better on the portion size.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what's your big why, Lisa? Why did you start the? I know you told me why you want what you wanted to do, lose the weight and get healthy, but what keeps you going on a daily basis?
Oh, yeah. It's just an assignment from God. I'm just on radical obedience to what I'm.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, if people wanted to reach out to you and find you, how can they get a hold of
Yes.
you?
Yeah. I'm Lisa Angel Smith. So, Instagram, on my YouTube channel, it's Lisa Angel Smith. Facebook, Lisa Angel Smith. My website, lisaangelsmith.com.
Come on,
And
Angel.
so, come on, Angel. So that would be the best place. So if you want to follow me on social media, Lisa Angel Smith. If you want to listen to my podcast, it's the Plant Protocol and those would be the
Yes.
best places. Yeah, this has been great, Anthony. Thank you.
Sure, sure. Again, thank you, thank you. I know you're so busy, and I know I can't have but so much more of your time, but I'm so grateful and so thankful that like you've given up your time. We've educated some people, and hopefully other, people will change their mindset when it surrounded food because a lot of times we celebrate with food. We get a promotion. What do? We go out to dinner. We go to a wedding. We gorge ourselves. It's everything is in our culture is around food.
Yep.
And so if we can make healthier options and healthier choices, we all get healthier. I know for me, just the brain fog is helped so much with the food that I eat.
Yep. Yep. Makes a
Yeah,
huge difference night and day. Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Lisa, Lisa, Lisa. It was so great seeing you again. I will be in touch with you. I'm going to start eating a little more better.
Okay. I like it. I like it.
I'm going to get radically obedient again.
That's what I like to hear, Anthony. Wishing you the best of luck and keep me posted. Shoot me an email. Let me know how you're doing.
Absolutely. Always. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much, Lisa.
Likewise. You're
Talk to
welcome.
you soon.
Take care.
And I'm Tony Taylor. I'm the connector, and thanks for watching. You could have been anywhere, but you chose to be here with me. And thank you. And until we see each other again, stay connected.